We're like, wait, that's not James Vanderbeek from Dawson's Creek. We're out of here.
So we're here to talk about Dawson's Creek. Did somebody leave us a present up here? First off, I want to start off by saying thank you for letting me borrow the shirt from your wardrobe from the show.
My bed sheets.
Yeah, your bed sheets. So I want to start off by asking you about a crazy fan theory. I, like many of you, grew up with Saved by the Bell, but I'd never heard this fan theory before. Of course, Saved by the Bell goes back before Saved by the Bell to Miss Bliss. Good Morning, Miss Bliss. Right? Yes, yeah. Good Morning, Miss Bliss. And it was on for a season, and then they rebooted it into Saved by the Bell.
Right.
And there's whose phone is this? Should we answer it? Hello? We were not saved by the bell with this phone. So there's a theory that Saved by the Bell is all in Zack's mind, because in Miss Bliss he was a slacker, and it's never explained after Miss Bliss why he moves to California, and so it's this idea that it's all a daydream, and he imagines himself as this cool kid. But I can see how bored you're getting by this.
Well, I'm just wondering, is this a question? Is that like
It's like this crazy fan theory that I had no idea existed, that I was wondering if you'd ever heard.
I have heard that. We've actually, we've had a little fun with it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many show raise of hands, who's watched the reboot?
Woo!
Yeah. All right, not as many as I would have liked. No, the reboot's really good. To plug the reboot, you know, it's a new cast. Some of the OG cast is there, but we do bring up that theory of like no one ever explained how one day we're in Indiana,
right?
Next show we're in LA, different cast. I've heard the daydream thing before. Yeah. Now a show of hands, who's watched Zack Morris's Trash?
Woo! Yes.
A little more than the reboot, I think, right? That's kind of weird. We don't get paid for that one. We get paid for the reboot. But Zack Morris' Trash, I think he brings it up in it as well. Yeah. By the way, that guy who created it is Dashel. His name's Dashel Driscoll. He is a writer now on the reboot. He's also my podcast host, co-host. How many show of hands? How many have heard the podcast? Oh, God. Not doing well.
Well, you're going to have that many more fans today.
Oh, yeah. We've actually done 50 episodes of the podcast. We've talked about that theory as well as some other theories. Yep.
And you mentioned the reboot, so we'll just talk about it right now. I can't imagine you ever thought that you would be back in this role and that there would ever be a modern reboot of Saved by the Bell.
No, not because we didn't want to. Back in 2008, I believe it is, I went on Fallon as Zack Morris. And, that was my idea. Yeah. Like we've loved playing those characters. There just wasn't an opportunity, and I couldn't figure out how to sort of preserve the product without tarnishing it, cherishing it, you know, like and moving forward. Like, how do we do that? So I'm glad that Tracy Wakefield, who is the showrunner for the reboot, was able to figure out the best way, and I think she did an amazing job, and the writers have done an amazing job, but we've for years tried to think of how can we reprise the roles and have some more fun with Saved by the Bell, and we couldn't figure it out. Yeah. She cracked the code, which is, I'm really proud of the reboot, and you know, I directed an episode this year, so really excited about people seeing that as well.
Yeah,
that was kind of fun, directing my OG cast. So telling Mario, you know, you stand here and do this. It was really cool.
Which obviously we're missing him. We're sad he couldn't be here with us.
Mario could not be here. He's hosting something, which is such a weird thing. Like hosting, I don't.
Does he host?
Does he even do that stuff?
Does he host stuff?
Yeah. If you have a birthday party that you'd like him to host,
he'll show up in a.
He'll be there.
He'll show up in
He's
a unitard.
Everywhere. I mean, that guy, like, I actually hate turning on my TV at the hotel because he's on it. I'm like, go away. I'll watch these movies if I want. I don't need to hear your synopsis of it. Shut up. But yeah, he's hosting iHeart Awards or something like that. Yeah. And then some fight afterwards.
So you know the gang's all back together, and you know the show is very modern. I mean, it's been crazy if any of you are on TikTok just to see the way that the '90s has come back around, which I think has been a big part of why the show, the original series, has had a kind of resurgence. But you guys kind of acknowledge some of the quote-unquote flaws of the original. You mentioned Zack Morris is trash. There's some episodes that don't quite hold up, some moral decisions that Zack made. Did that, I mean, it was a different time period, but was there ever an episode where you were just like, I don't know, guys, like, this may be too far?
No, I mean, the short answer is no. No, I mean, looking back, you know, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but we talk about this on the podcast. Specifically, an episode that was really cringeworthy was the Zack Morris where he's Native American.
Yes.
Not so much that part of Zack, but there was some other parts that some of the other casts say. Just kind of glossing over things that Jesse was doing with Lisa during that episode. Now, you know, being more involved and being more aware of things, it's, you know, you kind of look at it and go, ooh, it's a bit cringeworthy. But back then in the 90s, it wasn't. Not saying it was right to do it, but we were kids. So for me to be aware of, I mean, maybe we were aware of certain things, but it wasn't one of those things where I'm going to go tell the producer what I think. You know, as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, we were kind of like, stand here, say your lines, do this, and go home. But yeah, there's a few episodes that don't hold up in the current, like I don't even think like they would ever be made now.
Like Zack, for instance, faking a terminal illness to get a kiss from a girl, just as an example.
Yeah, or selling kisses.
Selling kisses.
Selling Lisa Turtle for, you know, so that he can get out of something or go to a game or whatever.
Right.
But, you know, selling someone else. Without their knowledge. Or how many times do we say this in the show where, you know, we've set up a camera in the girls' locker room or things like that. Things that do not fly and should not have flown back then because they were written by, you know, men in their 40s, 50s, saying, "No, it'd be funny if this kid did that." And like, but you know, we didn't think of it then, and you know, it's not now. It's just because we have the ability to rewatch it. And who thought we were going to rewatch the show 30 years later? I don't know if you guys all know, but we always thought the show was going to be canceled after every season. We would say goodbye to each other, and that was it. And we never thought that we'd go 4 seasons with the main show and 1 season with the college years, but we, after every season, said goodbye. As if it was our last, and then we were surprised it would come back. We'd all go back to our normal life again. We'd go back to school, and that was it.
Well, and it's been cool the way that you specifically with your podcast, and you mentioned the Indigenous people episode, like you kind of just came out on your own before anyone tried to cancel it or was outraged, and it's been cool the way in the reboot that you guys have used that now as a point of conversation, not in an after-school special way, but in a way that's like,
we poke fun at ourselves, we take the piss out of ourselves. I'm just surprised by, you know, we made a Selena Gomez joke in the first season, and I was really surprised because I thought it didn't seem that bad to me. I could see how people might be offended by it, but again, it's comedy, and we made a joke, and we had to actually take it off. We aired it, and then it came out, and people had a problem with it, and we actually took it off, which I was very surprised by, especially because the joke was like kind of a softball joke. But you know, now people,
you can make jokes.
Well, you can make jokes. It just can't offend too many people.
Exactly.
If it offends too many people, then you have to take it down. If it offends some people, you're like, we'll live with it.
I don't know if you know this, but Selena Gomez's fans are pretty.
Well, that's what it was. It was her fans, and I'm sure I'm going to be canceled now because of
you can't even say her name.
Don't speak her name.
Don't speak her name.
But yeah, it was most of the fans were like, you know, you can't say that about, you know, Selena. It's like, okay. So we didn't.
I'll ask you one more question, and then I'm sure you guys have a lot of great questions. So if you want to, we can, you know what, you don't have to line up. You can stay seated. But I have a feeling I know. I have a feeling I know the answer, but and maybe it's all over the place. But what's like people see you on the street, what's the one thing they're shouting at you, or the thing that you're like, oh my God, I can't hear this anymore?
I don't get noticed a lot on the street because I don't look. I constantly change my look.
You don't have to bleach your hair anymore.
No, I don't have to bleach my hair anymore. It's like I played a role for 2 years on Mixed Dish.
Yeah.
Had longer hair. Thank you. It's been canceled. That's why we had one viewer. She's in the bag. No, but it's like, that role, longer hair, different look, a little bit more weight. Before that, I was on The Passage, same thing, kind of character. That's why it was canceled too. One viewer. Pitch, I was on Pitch. Oh, 2 viewers, 3. Okay, still got canceled. But that was with with the beard and stuff. So I don't get recognized a lot.
Yeah.
I think the only reason I get recognized is because my wife is a 6-foot blonde, and it's one of those things where it's like a unicorn, right? You're like, whoa, and then who's the guy with the unicorn? And then it's like, oh, it's that guy. So they either think I'm James Vanderbeek or Mark-Paul Gosselaar. I don't get recognized a lot.
Wow.
So
people aren't just like running up to you on the street yelling, I'm so excited? Okay, good.
No, that would be Elizabeth. Elizabeth gets that a lot. I'm so excited. I actually have a hard time not saying that phrase around her. Whenever I see her, I'm like, I'm so excited. I'm really happy to see you. But yeah, we use that phrase quite a bit, and it always feels awkward.
People are like taking off their high tops and using them as cell phones in front of you, things like that.
No, that'd be awesome though.
Well, there you go. You can walk up to him at his table and do that.
Yeah, please don't do that. Especially when I'm eating. Or actually wait right as I'm about to take a bite, then do it.
Yeah.
So I have a full mouth of food. And then do that.
Yeah.
And then do that, yeah. So.
Yeah. All right, I think I saw your hand go up. You're first, sir. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
The evolution from being the comedic rule breaker, Zack, to being the lawyer in Franklin and Bash and NYPD Blue. That's quite a transformation in each character. Explain, go in and explain each one. Go from each to each.
Well, as an actor, I think one of the things that will attract you to the world of acting is that you get to play different characters, and playing Zack Morris was definitely a character. I was not that kid at all, right down to the hair. By the way, it was dyed for some of you who didn't know that. Some people are like, where's the blonde hair? I'm like, that was not real. It's like you can't even check a box on your driver's license what color that is. It's like it doesn't exist. It's not blonde, it's not brown, I don't know what it was. It was a character, and Zack was what I thought the cool kids in my school. I was getting information and using that for that character. Same with NYPD Blue. That character was based on the technical advisor, executive producer Bill Clark. Bill Clark was a 25-year veteran as a detective in New York, and I was just using him as a muse. Same with Franklin and Bash. Franklin and Bash was a little more. What did I base that character on? I based it on a guy that was really a huge fan of Jeff Daniels and The Big Lebowski. That's why if you would notice, like on that show, I never drank beer. I always had a White Russian. But those are you just play characters, and to be able to play different characters on different jobs is exactly, I think, what most actors are looking for. You never want to be typecast as like, oh, that's the role that you play.
I just appreciate the evolution from the wisecracker to the lawyer.
Yeah. Well, Peter Bash was pretty wisecracker in there, using that term. Sir, I keep seeing you. Yeah.
Is that microphone working, or should I just...
You say it right there, we hear you.
Yeah.
And I'll repeat the question.
Okay. One of the most famous episodes of the show was when you all did the play of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Was it a lot of hard work rehearsing the rap numbers and the choreography?
Yeah, it's funny because on the podcast we go from episode 1, and we've done 50 episodes, so we've gone through 49 because don't. It makes sense. But I have not gotten to that episode. The whole premise of the podcast is I've never watched the episodes. I have no idea what you just talked about. I really don't. I know there was something where we played Snow White, Seven Dwarfs. I don't.
Snow White and the Seven Dorks.
We
should
okay.
point that out.
I don't know who I was in that show.
The prince.
I was a prince, of course.
Yes. Elizabeth was Snow White, and Kelly was actually the evil queen, and you and Kelly ended up together. You and Elizabeth decided to change the play, so Elizabeth would end up with Slater, who was one of the dorks, and you and the queen would end up together.
It's all a blur. It's not coming
I mean, it sounds like a great episode.
I think
but the thing is, like, this is what the whole podcast is about. I watch the show about 2 hours before we go and tape the episode. I watch the episode, I make my notes, and we talk about it. But yeah, I have not seen that episode since we last filmed it, which would have been over 30 years ago, so I couldn't tell you any sort of memories until I watch it. Something may come up where I go, oh, I remember that.
You probably would have gotten into it sooner because it actually aired out of order. I heard it was filmed in the second season, but they saved it for the last season.
Yeah, they did a lot of that, by the way. They did a lot of filming and held episodes. It made there was no linear, path of things. Who said path, by the way? You said path, thank you, because I was like trying to find that word. But there was no linear path of like from filming to airing. They just held on to episodes, and wherever they felt like putting them in, they did. It never made any sense. We would be filming, and then we had the beach episodes, and then we went back to we were like Kelly and I were together, and then we weren't, and then we were together. It never made any sense. So we talk about this on the podcast.
All right. So, and one last thing. I just wanted you to say hi to a couple of people. And they actually have the same name. My friend Natalie, who is here, and actually my sister Natalie, who couldn't make it. So could you just say hi to them really quick?
Yeah, hi Natalie. I don't know how your sister would. Is your sister here?
She's in Louisiana.
Okay, she heard me. Hi Natalie. I think they could definitely.
I kind of want you to just have him on your podcast and like recap all the episodes for you. I like that. Yeah, right here. Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. You can stay seated if you want. You don't. Yeah.
I just want to say that I'm a big fan of all the episodes, and if anybody didn't know, it's all on Netflix now.
Yeah.
Also, same with about the college years. In hindsight, and this is just me, I felt that if it was on after maybe the new class back on Saturday mornings, that maybe it would have lasted beyond the season. I know that they put you guys to prime time because you're dealing with different issues, but looking back, it still seems kind of tame compared to what we have today. But I just think, just understanding, would you think it would have worked better if you guys were still sorting that block?
Yeah, I don't know that we wanted to be on Saturday morning at that point because Saturday morning, I think it's been talked about and it's pretty well known, but we didn't get paid very well for being on Saturday morning. It wasn't until we went on prime time that we got prime time-ish money because we were still pretty underpaid for those primetime shows, considering what they're paying actors now on first season shows. But it was a substantial amount compared to what we did on Saturday morning. So I think we were very happy to be on primetime. I don't think that any of us would have wanted to go back to Saturday morning pay. So that's probably why we ended the show after one season. And it was kind of weird. It just didn't work. But a lot of things don't work. Yep.
Unfortunately, my question is not about Saved by the Bell. It's about NYPD Blip.
Okay.
What was it like when you found out you're going to be on the show and actually partnered up with Dennis Franz after everybody else was already cast at that role? Those are pretty big shoes to fill. How did you feel about that?
Huge shoes to fill. Well, I actually didn't audition for NYPD Blue. I auditioned for Philly. Philly was a show that Kim Delaney left NYPD Blue to go do. It was a show about a public defender in Philadelphia, I believe. Yeah. It was another Stephen Bochco show. I went in to go read for that. Actually, I didn't know that. I did know. They had offered it to another actor before I went in. I still said to them, I want to go in and fight for this role. I know that you've offered it to this guy, but I want to go in and show you what I can do. and that actor was Tom Everett Scott. Tom Everett Scott and I had worked 2 years prior to that on Dead Man on Campus. But I still wanted to go in. I wanted to go in, meet Stephen Bochco, show him, you know, you prepare all this stuff, you do all this work, and then to not even go in and get a shot, it didn't sit right with me. So I was like, just have me come in. Went in, read, Stephen Bochco said, stood up, and he said, "You're a fantastic actor." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." I already knew that they offered it to Tom. I knew the chances of me getting this role were very slim, because, you know, it was up to Tom to accept the role, and then it's history. And he says, "I would like to work with you." And I thought, this is a really nice way of sending me off, right? Like, I'm sure all of us have been in job interviews where they're like, "You're really good. We'll give you a call." And you're like, okay, it's not going to go anywhere. But he did say in the room, he goes, "Look, I'd love to work with you." He goes, "I know it's a pilot season. If you get something, I'd like to know, because maybe I'll get in front of it." And I thought, this guy, you know, super nice guy. I shook his hand. 2 weeks later, he called and said, how would he like to be on NYPD Blue? I knew at that point Rick Schroeder was still in that role. There was no openings for anything. There was no like talks of them adding a character. So I thought, I'm probably gonna play just like a beat cop, you know, just like maybe a uniform cop or something like that. And he said to my reps, no, Rick is gonna leave and Mark-Paul is gonna fill his shoes. And I was like, wait, as Sipowitz's partner? Like, that's nuts, right? I mean, here's a guy who's been nominated 9 times for an Emmy. Here's a California kid who's now gonna play a New York detective. And by the way, I never read for the role. So how does he know that I can play a cop? I mean, he saw something, and so I went in there. And this is before the day and age of real social media. Like, there was the internet, but it was, you know, you'd have to, there was like these pages that you'd have to go to.
Message boards.
Message boards that you'd go on that are dedicated. Those message boards lit me up. They're like, this guy's gonna come on the show, he's gonna fuck it up, and I'm gonna be watching the show again. And I remember just going in with that in my head of like, I should not, you know, don't read the comments. I read them, and so I was very anxious to go on. But meeting Dennis, he's a big teddy bear. One of the most genuine people you'll ever meet. I learned so much on my tenure on that show. But I remember the first time I met him, he just gave me a huge hug, welcomed me to the show, and said, you know, whatever you need, basically, I'm here for you. One of the best experiences of being on a set, because you have a guy like Dennis who's running the ship, and Stephen Bochco who's protecting you guys and giving you this great material. As an actor, to be in that environment, you can be creative and feel safe, and the fact that it's being watched by millions of people and being adored is always a nice feeling.
I thought you had better chemistry with him than Ricky Schroeder did.
Yeah, people have said that. That might have been the reason why Rick didn't make it through, you know. But it's not easy working with you know, different personalities on a set. You know, people take it for granted that you guys are going to get along, but it's, you know, everyone's different. And so it's sometimes you have good chemistry, and sometimes you don't. You have to really make it work. You'd be surprised movies that you love or shows that you love that the 2 stars in the show can't stand each other, but yet make great television or film. So, but Dennis and I genuinely liked each other, and he still is a great friend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hi, Mark. I was all the way in the back, so I figured I'd come up here. I have a 2-part question.
Okay, I have a 2-part answer.
What is your go-to dance move? And what would be Zach's go-to dance move? And would you be willing to show us?
So I really wish you would listen to my podcast. I'm just plugging the podcast. These are all things I've answered. I'm scarred for life for dancing. I danced on a show, who remembers what it was called? Was it Dancing to the Max? Dancing to the Max, right? Somebody just say yes.
Yes.
But Dancing to the Max, I think, is where I dance with Jesse, and Lisa does the sprain. That was in the first season, I think, or they aired it in the first season. We shot it in the second season. I don't know when it was. But we did review it, and so did a reporter from the Los Angeles Times who said that he basically said I was fucking horrible and that I should never dance ever again. And he couldn't believe that they actually allowed that to air, my lack of dancing ability. But yeah, I don't like to dance probably because of that reason. I mean, I just don't like to be, are any of us really good dancers? I mean, you can kind of play it off like you are.
I think you're a good dancer if you dance and you don't care.
There you go. I care too much. So my dance is, unless I'm in a very safe environment with, I'll dance in front of my kids. And you were saying go-to dance moves. I don't have any go-to dance moves, but I just saw a video of Gangnam Style. And I was like, oh man, remember that dance? So I started doing that dance with my kids and stuff like that. I thought it was hilarious.
What if we all did it at the same time?
What's that?
What if we all did it at the same time? You guys would do it, right?
Yeah, let's all dance, guys.
Yeah. I literally for a second thought you were so bad at dancing that you just discovered Gangnam Style. I was like, that was like 10 years ago.
But you remember that movie?
Oh, I unfortunately do remember that, yes.
Oh, there, see? That's good. Yeah.
That's about it.
I keep seeing her hand go. Yeah, hi.
Hi. So you mentioned Dead Man on Campus, which, I thought was a great movie, but you've done predominantly TV shows. Do you plan on doing any more movies?
Yeah, I would like to. I've been very fortunate to be able to work on shows. There's not much time to do films. Films take a while to kind of set up and get produced and made, whereas television shows, it's like there's a very specific schedule, and if the show's going to go in April, it's probably going to go in April. Where films, just with all the funding and the actors and stuff, trying to get everything to kind of come together, sometimes takes more time. But I would like to do films, but I'm just doing more television, and I think I'm transitioning more to directing now. And so that might get in the way of acting in films. Maybe I'll direct a film, but yeah, I'm not opposed to it. It's a scheduling conflict at times.
That film for that time in your career, it's so great, and the chemistry between the three of you in that movie is so great. But at the time, I have to imagine that going from being predominantly known for Saved by the Bell into something that is like a raunchy R-rated comedy was kind of a move to be like, hey, I'm not just this guy.
It wasn't a conscious effort to remove myself from Saved by the Bell because I auditioned for that role.
Yeah.
When if I was offered the role, or if it was something that I was producing and bringing to them, it'd be different. But that was one of those where I just went in with 100 other people and walked out with the job. But no, it wasn't really a conscious decision to change. It was
what came along.
Yeah, it was what really came along, and I connected with the writer in the room and the director. My hair was black at that time. I think, because I just dyed my hair all the time. I was just one of those kids that I'm gonna go platinum and then blonde and then whatever.
It's so funny to hear that, because I think at the time, if you were a fan of Saved by the Bell and you're like, oh, he's doing an R-rated comedy, he's dyeing his hair black from blonde.
No, it's weird because when college years ended in '94, there was a dry period. It was probably not until '96 that I started working again, and that was for an NBC movie called She Cried No. The only reason I know that is because the title just makes me laugh every time. It's not a funny thing, the thing, but just the way that those TV movies back in the '90s, it was always like 3-word title.
She Cried No.
She Cried
16 and pregnant.
Yeah. It was just what was the other one that was in? Dying to Belong. There was another one too. I did 3 in a row. It'll come to me. But I had a dry period, and then got those movies, those television movies, movie of the weeks they used to call them, and then just auditioned for that role. I think that role was in '98.
Yeah.
Dead Man on Campus, but one of those things. And so I wasn't consciously trying to change much of anything.
Wow.
And same with NYPD Blue. I didn't consciously say, I need to now look for roles like
Sure.
this. It just sort of happened.
So speaking of made-for-TV movies, we actually are really big disaster film fans. So I wanted to find the favorite part about filming Atomic Twister. And would you be interested in doing another project that centers around disaster themes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? My favorite part about Atomic Twister was working in New Zealand. That's where we shot it. And it was the first time being there, working with Sharon Lawrence, who's actually an alum from NYPD Blue. So I knew that I was going to do NYPD Blue before I started that movie. And so it was cool to work with somebody who was in the family of NYPD Blue. But my favorite part of that film was the location, just being there, and the food, the people, and all that stuff. I didn't really care to be blown around throughout the entire thing, because to get that, they put these big Ritter fans. They're just like these ginormous. It's almost like a prop of an airplane. And that's what's blowing on you all the time. They're throwing sand and dust, and you're trying to act and yell over, "Get to the truck!" That stuff. It's just so over the top. It's kind of horrible to. If you were there watching it live, it'd be laughable. But then, it gets produced and you'd laugh a little less.
All right, we got time for a few more. Yes, sir. I saw your hand go.
I just looked at Born into Exile.
Born into Exile. There's the third one. Thank you.
Born into Exile.
So it was She Cried No, Born into Exile, Dying to Belong. Those were the three in that period I did back to back to back.
It was the full process of life, from being born to dying.
Yeah. But see how there were always three. There were Born into Exile was actually supposed to be called, see, and it's so weird how my memory works. You just spark a bunch of stuff. And this is why I say listen to the podcast, because this is what happens on the podcast. But Born into Exile was called Runaway Train. And Runaway Train was based on the song Runaway Train.
Soul Asylum? Yeah, wow.
There you go. But yeah, and they were like, no, we need a 3-word title, because that's what we do here at NBC. So they went with Born into Exile.
My question is...
No, that was your question.
Nope, sorry.
We're going to move on.
You talked about typecasting. How did the rest of the cast feel whenever Elizabeth did Showgirls? Was that her way to get out of typecasting, or...?
I just remember her coming to my apartment saying that she was going to work with Paul Verhoeven, who's Dutch, and I'm Dutch. And she's just like, I need to learn some dirty words. I'm like, this is going to go well. So she just wanted me to have dirty words so that she could, say to Paul. But, we're all actors, and we whatever you have to do. It was her way of, I don't know what, she's not here to answer that question, but watching it, I definitely was like, wow, she went out there. And good or bad, you got to give it to her. She put herself out there, which is commendable.
And it's cool now to see that film be appreciated in the way that it is. They've written whole books on it, and there's a whole course on it. So it's
on the reboot. And we have some fun with it in the second season.
Yeah,
there's some stuff. So I know we've been looking over here. Freddie had his hand up for a while.
I saw Freddie's claw go up.
Yes. Have you ever heard of people who thought that when they got to high school that it would be like Saved by the Bell, but they were surprised about how different it was when they were actually in high school?
Are you talking about yourself? Because I'm sorry if that's... I do. I have people come up to me that say that, high school is nothing like what you guys portrayed it on. Saved by the Bell. It's like, yeah, it was a TV show. Which, I apologize if anybody got sent to the principal's office for doing anything we did on set.
And I can't...
You know what? Duh.
Yeah. I can't imagine you yourself that was probably your high school. You probably didn't even have a...
I went to public high school, but there was a time where I could no longer be there. Not because of... Nobody in my high school watched our show.
Right.
It just wasn't the thing. I think they were watching 90210, because that was the cooler show back then. But I just went back to normal high school, and then I had to stop because the teachers did not want. 9 months out of the year, we were filming the show, so the teacher would have to, give you work for the entire year. They just weren't into that, so then we had to go to. I had to go to a specific school that dealt with teenagers who worked or were refusing to go to school. So I went to a great high school.
I love it. All right, couple
I
more.
want to get through a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Quick.
Rapid fire.
Have any of your kids started watching Saved by the Bell?
My 17 and 15-year-old started watching it a few years ago, and then they stopped. It was. My son is a huge fan of the podcast. Actually, the other day he just said, "Hey, Dad, when are you going to do another episode?" So we've been on a hiatus for the last month, but he's a fan of the podcast. So.
Also, you're awesome. I love the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice shirt, by the way.
Yes,
Yeah.
How would you compare the production value of the NBC skit with Jimmy Fallon to the spin-off Reboot?
The connection between those, I think the reboot is more in line with what we've done on the skits. Just taking a little more fun, the liberty of the characters, the absurdity of the characters, especially nowadays. So that, yeah, I think there's a pretty good connection between the two. So I think they fall in line really well. Yes, you had your hand up for a while. The guy in red. Yeah.
Yeah, I just was curious about the segueing into directing that you're doing.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious on how do you kind of do that segue? Do you do additional studying for that, or is it just from your time in acting that it makes it just a seamless transition, or how does that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on for 30 years in front of a screen, behind a screen?
Behind a screen, in front of the camera. You're in between the screen and the camera.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's morning in LA. It's 2 hours. But no, I've always had. As an actor, you fall in line where you're not aware of things that are happening behind the camera, or you are. And I was always one who was very aware of where the camera was, what was going on, the components that were needed to create what we do on screen. I've been fascinated by it, and I've always wanted the opportunity to direct. I finally got that opportunity when I did an episode of Franklin and Bash. Breckenmeyer wrote the episode, I was able to direct it. Some of the other shows that I wanted to direct, I wish I had directed NYPD Blue. Stephen Bochco wasn't very keen on having his actors direct. He would always say, actors act, producers will produce, us writers will write. And everything was very compartmentalized. When I finished all that, I actually did direct one of his episodes on Murder in the First. I was not an actor on that. And then now doing Saved by the Bell. A lot of networks and studios have a precedent where they don't let actors direct the first season of shows. And unfortunately, since 2016, 2015, I've been on one season shows. Truth Be Told, Pitch, Passage, and then, Mixed-ish. First season kind of showed because the second season we were in COVID and they weren't going to let me direct that. But I've always wanted to direct. I have mentors who have helped me, and it's just making those connections and showing people that you can. And taking the time, because I make most of my money as an actor. And so having to sort of push that aside and then say, you know what, I'm going to focus on directing, it takes a bit of like, okay, we're going to do this. I'm not going to make as much money as I did last year. I'm going to focus on this. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is focusing more on the directing. Yes?
In the movie Necessary Parties, you got to work with Alan Arkin.
Yes.
Did you know, his career at that time in your life? What is it?
Kind of. I did. I was, one of my favorite movies before meeting Alan was The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. I'm very familiar with his comedy. His wife wrote that movie. He obviously starred in it. I lived with them for a month. In upstate New York while we were filming that movie. I'm not really sure why my mom wasn't there. I always ask these questions, like there's a picture of Mario and I with our shirts off. I don't know if you guys have seen that one where it's like wind is blowing and our shirts are open. We're 16. And it seems weird, like why didn't our parents tell somebody, like no, they're not gonna take their shirts off, put their shirts back on. We're 16. Different times. The 90s were different. So yeah, I was living with Alan, and my mother was not there. I don't really know. Anyway, we'll move on with that. But that was a fun movie. Yes.
So, Zack Morris is known for his schemes and things like that. Do you, in interactions with other fans, things like that, do you ever have people come up to you and say, or talk to you about, like, have anybody ever tried to recreate or redo sort of schemes of their own?
Like as a senior prank?
Something like, yeah. Like in real life that they've tried?
No, I'm sure. I mean, what he kind of touched on was that, school is way different. I tried to do that and it didn't work. So I've had a few of those. Yeah, I'm sure nowadays though, if you did some of the things that Zach did, you probably want.
Yeah, you can't do most of them. They're all
like,
illegal.
Dude, you should pay my bail because I tried what you did. But it's like I wasn't the writer. I was an actor. So I didn't do those things. Believe it or not, it wasn't me.
How young were you when you started acting, and what was that like?
I started really young. I started at 4 doing print work. So my mother is Indonesian. Sorry, I don't know why I struggled saying that. She's Indonesian. My father's Dutch, and no connection whatsoever to the business. But she had a friend who was a model, and cute kid, So it's like they said, oh, you should put him in front of a camera, do print work for things that aren't around anymore, like Sears and May Company and Mervyn's and things like that. Mervyn's. I think Mervyn's is now Kohl's.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. So, anyway, so I started doing those kind of things. I got my SAG card, Screen Actors Guild, in 1984. I was 10, and so I'd done a lot of commercials, and I think one of the very first things that I ever did was Highway to Heaven with Michael Landon.
Yeah.
And then Punky Brewster, I think, at 12, and then Saved by the Bell shortly after that. So I was pretty young. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
I'm pretty sure you might have answered this on your podcast, which I'll definitely be checking out because most of the other ones right now are garbage. The fight scene with Slater, how many takes did you need for that?
We didn't get. It's interesting. We haven't gotten to that episode yet. And I'm really looking forward to that episode. The fight scene with Slater. That was legit. I mean, we talk about this on the podcast that we used to do our own stunts. You would never do that nowadays. Like that fight scene would never happen nowadays in the way that it did then. It was literally like, okay, Mario is a state wrestler, state champion wrestler. Mark-Paul is not. All right, great. Fight. So Mario slams me against his lockers. Those lockers took a lot of give. We used to do that all the time where you back into them and they give and that doesn't hurt. I'll tell you what did hurt when he throws me over his shoulder and I don't know what that's called in wrestling, but pain. But yeah, he takes a swing or I take a swing. We haven't gotten there, but I do remember he does a hip toss and throws me to the ground. Yeah, we will hopefully we'll review that episode. Hopefully maybe get Mario on it too, because we do wrestle together now. We're both in jiu-jitsu together, so it's funny that we do that now.
I hate to say this, but we are getting
kicked out.
We're getting the timeout, so to speak. Here, we're getting the wrap up. So, thanks, man. This was great.
If you have any questions, come to the booth.
Yeah, we'll be here tomorrow as well, right?
Yeah, we'll be here today, tomorrow. I think there's a photo op, and just come to the booth. And if you have any questions, we're there.
Cool. Thanks so much, man. Mark-Paul Gosselaar. Thank you, guys. And kids, remember, don't do drugs.